Good morning. It is Tuesday, September 13th, and welcome to my Zone 5B backyard. Some things are still looking good, some things are starting to slow down, and mostly I've got some flowers and even some tomatoes. We're starting here at the top of the back deck where the rockin' plain the blue salvia is still attracting the occasional bee, where the supertunias, this one here is the Australian silverberry, are attracting the sphinx moths at night, which look like little hummingbirds. Got a morning glory, a couple of morning glories, which are these darker pink ones, and they have just been lovely and finally really blooming here along the railings. So just doing nicely. The celosia is starting to go to seed. There's a little red one here. It's very early in the morning, so apologize for the bad lighting here. The elephant ears have been fun, and they have grown quite well. We've got some gladiolus, and even more than that, the acidanthera. This little guy is starting to go to seed, so I'm going to leave him there to dry. Here's more of that rockin' plain the blue salvia with the trailing silverberry. This one here, I think once I had kind of let it dry out at one point, it never did quite recover as well as I wish it had, but it's still going fine. It's got a couple of even little pansies in here, and something that is quite interesting. Can't see it here, but I had taken just pieces of the supertunia that had fallen off. There's some morning glory again, and stuck it into the soil to just see what would happen. And it's amazing to me how, like even after like weeks and weeks and weeks of doing that, and having it in here, like this one right here, they still haven't like actually set roots. Like they'll be in the ground, they'll be in the soil, and they'll be, and they'll be alive, and but when I had pulled up bits of it before, they still had like no roots on them, even though they were surviving just as the stem stuck in the ground. Here is the small cardinal flower. This is a lobelia, and it's kind of a spreading ground cover thing here. I've got some to grow from seed next year, and my seed starting grow lights just arrived, which is kind of fun. There we go. Looking pretty. All right, let's go downstairs. Got to show you a few things. So number one, the cosmos have still not pushed a single bloom. Nice foliage though. They look like giant carrots. I think I just had been treating them too nicely. Apparently you've got to make them struggle a bit. The zinnias are bringing up flowers now and again. The tomatoes, for the first time in my life, I've got tomatoes that actually look good and look like tomatoes, and are in fact actually quite tasty. This one here in particular. This one, I don't know what kind it is. It's from the neighbor whose house you see right behind you there. They don't get red, but they get kind of sort of a pinkish green hue, and they've been phenomenally terrific. Here's where I pulled up the potatoes. By the way, best potatoes of my life. That grew here just from some composted potatoes that hadn't quite composted all the way. The sunflowers, yeah, absolutely loving them. All of these sunflowers are branching types, which I very much like. It does make it hard to cut off of unless you do really, really small stems, because as you can see, you just get more. I just have more and more buds, and so I want to let those go. Plus, I'm just seeing what happens if I let some of these sunflower heads actually dry out, and to see if I can maybe harvest from seeds from the ones there that I truly enjoy. We've got some more zinnias, more of the cosmos that aren't doing anything. What else? There's one or two other things like tucked in here, like there on the bottom. You can see that is a cucumber vine, that right there. That's as big as it's gotten. So I'm not expecting to get any cucumbers from it. Last year I got, I think, one or two cucumbers. Here we go. These are the Acidanthera gladiolus really delicate and beautiful. And what they seem to do is they seem to push like 2, 3, maybe even 4 of these little flowers, which by the way, these flowers do not cut well. They will kind of wilt within a couple of hours, at least in my experience. So enjoy them in the garden, but don't try to bring them inside. Gladiolus really have done beautifully out here in the backyard. Towards the end, especially when I went out of town and let things dry out on the petunias, the aphids all came to the gladiolus. Did not attack the rose shrubs though, which was interesting. The roses have actually been doing really, really well with all the wetness. There's a supertunia bubblegum in the ground. Not terribly happy there, but it has spread and it has pushed flowers. A couple of perennial phlox that did push some flowers, but yeah, that's just not a good spot for them, I think, overall. Salvia totally dying back. Burning bush. There's this hydrangea is more lush than ever before. With that's my hydrangea. That's as good as it gets. I'm going to possibly move that to somewhere else, since it's just lived, like it's managed to live for multiple years in that area and soil. The roses, this has been just covered in blooms all summer long, so that's been great. There's the willow. There's little brother willow, big willow, as I've mentioned before, and this is I've just hacked at this to get some to make it smaller, but this is the one that's been in here for I think about 9 months longer in the backyard than this one, which I had in the front yard, and it was totally struggling, but you can see it's flushing up. It's doing okay. There's a black tower elderberry, and it's actually seeming pretty happy there. I've got some little tiny snapdragons. These are most of them are yellow ones that came up from last year. Oh yeah, this is a hydrangea. This is another hydrangea that I put in the ground, and this is not bad for what for how it's done over the past couple years, but it pushes enough to get just enough nutrients to bring it to the next year, which is lovely. And I'm going to be pulling that little guy out and giving it a better home, maybe in the front yard in the spring. So that's the yard. But just look at this. I just have to say, like, honestly, my neighbors must be pretty happy to get to see something like that instead of just nothingness. Like, it really does look pretty. And my husband's grilling. He's really good at the grill. So yeah, so I'm really happy with how that looks up there, and I've just really enjoyed having it. There was one little hummingbird this morning when I came down here, and I was standing right there. A hummingbird came up and just kind of went right in my face and said hello, which was very sweet. So you're going to see more sunflowers next year for sure. You're going to see less cosmos, that's for sure. You're going to see more gladiolus and even the acidanthera. Probably not going to see the morning glories because I've got some scarlet runner beans, which apparently are going to push flowers and beans. Probably you won't see tomatoes unless my neighbor gives me the plants. I mean, seriously, you can see this is 2 plants that had kind of grown together there, and this is the same people who gave me the tomatoes, and theirs are sitting there because they don't get as much sun. I don't even know if they've gotten any tomatoes, but they sure grew a phenomenal seedling. So really, for the first time in my life, I've actually got tomatoes to speak of. So thank you to them. We'll leave you with a view of a really pretty sunflower.